Good day all. I hope we all are safe and sound. Safe from the Chinese Wuhan virus and sound at home. Today, I'm taking this opportunity to broadcast a series of lectures on the port state control. First and foremost, I thank you all for giving me all the support what you have provided me and onto my channel under the banner of Marine Quest Solutions. So far, what feedback I've got besides the main core of the subject matter, the ship handling, maneuvering, hydrodynamics, and STS operations, and also I've broadcasted some case studies. It has given me food for thought to do, taking your advice and taking your inquisitiveness into account. It occurred to me that I should also start catering to that as well. Therefore, it motivates me to now start with a series of PSC, that what all things can be done or what all preparations can be done to help the vessels and the officers to basically stay away from the most horrendous and or detainable deficiencies on board. Therefore, this particular series I will be broadcasting only under the lecture number 38. Like this one is the first one, so it has been named as number 38 PSC Part 1. Thereafter, I'll be broadcasting the series under the lecture number 38 for PSC Part 1, 2, 3, 4 subsequently, as in how I get your feedback, whether you have liked this particular subject. And please, all of you who have liked it and not subscribed it, I would urge you to please like and subscribe. Therefore, you will get your automatic notification. But please do give me a heads up on this subject matter. How do you feel about it? What more do you want to know from the PSC preparation point of view? Regarding myself, it takes me a little bit more of interest because I myself inspected, audited almost 750 plus ships in capacity of a pre-vetting inspector or auditor. So if I look at it from that perspective, it gives me lots of vision to where to look for and try to cope up with the PSC deficiencies so that the vessels and the officers and the owners do not get a kind of an embargo from the PSC detentions, etc. So this particular lecture I'm focusing basis uh, the Paris MOU, PSC, modus operandi, and what all are the main detention points. Today I'm going to talk about in brief, but with your feedback, we will keep on, increasing it in details as per your queries. So we begin now. PSC deficiencies and detentions, of course, remember that these things really not only, they are a risk, very high risk observations from the PSC point of view, but commercially they actually, very adversely affect the owners, charters, and also to a certain extent the employment prospects of officers and their well-being. Well-being, when I say financially. So we need to basically be very serious and exercise all our diligence and prudence when we are trying to carry out or when the vessel is going to be due for a PSC inspection. PSC inspection, as per the Paris MOU, have been catered under 7 different sections. I will name out to you. First is under SOLAS, which we'll talk about in a little bit of details. Number 2 is about load line items. Number 3 is about MARPOL. When we say MARPOL Annex 1, that is for oil, 2 for chemical, 3 for DG, dangerous good compliance, 4 for your sewage, 5 for garbage, and 6 for the air pollution prevention. So MARPOL Annex from 1 to 6 have to be also catered to with diligence If the vessel is oil tanker, then she has to comply, thoroughly with oil tanker with respect to ORB Part 2 and also ORB Part 1 for the engine room. And for chemical tanker, it's a cargo record book. And if she's oil chemical tanker, then chemical ORB Part 1 and Part 2 respectively, along with the cargo record book. Plus, lots of other aspects are there from the chemical tanker perspective, like the vessel should have, authenticated approval for carriage of the cargoes. That comes, of course, under certification. We'll talk about when we come to that subject matter. Then comes your STCW compliance and competitive as far as the officers' qualifications are concerned. This is number 4, under which the CIC harmonized PSC inspections then they take place. So I repeat myself, first is SOLAS, second is load lines, third is MARPOL from Annex 1 to Annex 6, fourth is STCW, your certification qualification of officers, fifth is ILO compliance, and sixth is your MLC 2000 compliance, and seventh is, AFS, Anti-Fouling Convention compliance. So today we'll talk about, with respect to SOLAS, I've jotted down few things. Because there are lots of points, so I will talk about it, not very specifically, but to make you understand. And when you have any doubt or anything else you would like to know from under SOLAS, we will talk and discuss about it in details with my whatever practical experience I have. So first and foremost, what is a detainable deficiency? A detainable deficiency that presents an immediate threat to the ship, its personnel, or environment, which renders the ship unsafe to proceed to sea. In other words, any deficiency which may hinder the the crew, the vessel, and or the environmental compliance policies, that is construed as a very high risk observation from the PSC point of view, and that can lead to a detainable deficiency. A ship can expect to be detained when, in the professional judgment of the port state control officer, that is, he considers unsafe to allow a ship to proceed to sea before the deficiencies identified have been rectified. There are various codes. We'll talk about those codes also. Sometimes the PSC gives a deficiency that this particular deficiency shall be, completed. The whole thing should be concluded before the ship sails out. Only then the vessel is allowed to sail. But in case the deficiency, which is very serious, which cannot be closed by the shipboard staff, even by calling for the workshop, and the deficiency can put the lives on board as far as SOLAS and or the vessel or the environmental damages can be, it can lead to environmental damage, then those deficiencies are construed as very high risk observations and or detainable deficiencies. But mind you, as I said earlier, that these detainable deficiencies, what happens? If the vessel is detained, it very adversely affects the vessel commercially, because the vessel goes not only when she's detained, she goes off hire, the owner stops getting his funds from the charterers, and end of the day, trust me, it really leads to the competence of officers if the due diligence is not exercised, and in return, somewhere down the line, because this is a kind of a chain reaction, it may or it can perhaps affect your employment prospects as well. What are the repercussions when the detention order is placed on the vessel? Now, that's what I said earlier. We'll talk about it. Once the detention order has been placed on a ship, it is likely to remain part of the historical port state records for that ship and be displayed on the web for at least 3 years. So you can understand what are the repercussions besides the vessel being detained and the owners, charters, operators, everybody suffering the financial loss. It's like, something, you're coming in the cater of getting the vessel blacklisted for at least 3 years, because it will be reflected all over the www World Wide Web. So read this important line again. That's the reason I've underlined it. Once a detention order has been placed on a ship, it is likely to remain part of the historical port state record for a ship and be displayed on a web for at least 3 years. In other words, suppose a vessel is detained in one particular port, and after she has complied with all the requirements to get the detention orders lifted, but that record, the synopsis, the history remains in the PSC data log or in their computers for at least 3 years. So whenever the vessel visits that particular port or under the MOU ports where the ports or the port states are in a harmonization, it automatically gives a red blip or highlights it that yes, this particular vessel was detained in so and so port, and or today everything is harmonized in a worldwide web system. So anywhere you go, it will be definitely reflected even with or without you showing the last report or not. A detention order might include an instruction that a ship has to remain in a particular place or move to an anchorage or other berths. The order should specify the circumstances that would allow the detention to be released. The fact that a ship has been detained should be clearly stated on the report form. Of course, the PSCO, the Port State Control Officer, has to reflect that the vessel has been detained under Code 30 and for what reason, until such time the detention orders have been lifted, that is subject to the class, the flag state inspection and or concurrence when a final close up or closure report is produced to the port state control after their review from the authenticated authorities, be it flag state and or the class. Only then the detention orders are released for that particular vessel. So we have seen what are the repercussions. Now we come to the areas under which the vessel can be detained if she's not in compliance. Number one, under SOLAS, what we mentioned earlier, point number one, failure of operations of propulsion and other machinery as well as electrical installation. Any problem, any major problem or reoccurrence with the machinery, with propulsion and or the electrical, that also, we can talk about the emergency generators, anything which comes and construes to us or plays a part in the ship's propulsion and critical machinery system, if there's any failure or any flaw or has not been rectified, can lead to a PSC detention from the machinery engine room point of view. And of course, the housekeeping, that goes without saying. Insufficient cleanliness in the engine room, excess of oily water mixture in the bilges, insulation of piping, including exhaust pipes in the engine room, contained by oil, improper operation of bilge pumping arrangements. So, when we talk about from the engine room point of view, the high risk observations also, besides the machinery, not operating, especially the critical machineries. The other aspect which are also highlighted under this are, the housekeeping, the OWS, oily water separator, the improper entries in the ORB Part 1. Under MEPC 736, there's a circular MEPC 736 which was published in October 2011, which is supposed to be a kind of a Bible for filling the data correctly in ORB Part 1 for machinery spaces. And of course, as we speak, also under Charlie, that is C, that is the weekly entries in ORB Part 1. Furthermore, any installation of piping, exhaust pipes, engine room contained by oil, improper operation of bilge pumping or arrangements, which we have just talked about. All these things can lead to high risk observations and furthermore culminate into a detention. Point number three, failure of proper operation of emergency generator, lightning, batteries and switches. Emergency generator, as I said earlier in my beginning statement, for the machinery spaces and engine room is also a very critical machinery, and of course has to be in at all time in proper working order at all times. So from engine room point of view, first is the main machinery, auxiliaries, then steam pipes, anything which can lead to a personal injury, any lagging which is not covered up, or anything which may affect the environmental protection policy of the company or as per the MARPOL. And of course, we talked about the OWS definitely have all the containment procedures or the contingency procedures have been put in place as far as the OPA, OWS and MARPOL compliance is concerned. All these things are cited. We will talk about all these things in details when I'm coming with your feedback. I'll explain you in details. Number three, what I talked about the emergency generator, lightning, batteries, and switches. We have emergency lights, you know, marked with positive identification all over the ship, which come from the emergency generator. So all these things, if they are not in compliance, that can also lead to a detention. Number four, failure of proper operation of main or auxiliary steering gear. As you know that it is mandatory for every vessel to before arrival into a port facility at least 12 hours before arrival. That is as per SOLAS and as per 33 CFR when the vessels are going to US ports. That within 12 hours, all these things should be tested, including your main engine, your auxiliary machineries, your generators, your steering gear, main and auxiliary. All of them shall be tested in compliance in exercising prudence. Point number five: insufficient capacity of serious deterioration of personal life saving appliances, survival craft, and launching arrangements. Of course, I'm just highlighting because today we are discussing all those first point under which the under the SOLAS where a detention can take place. Non-maintenance of the LSA FFE item and or they are not proper as per the safety equipment certificate or serious deterioration of the LSA and FFE. In other words, they have not been, the routine maintenance has not been carried out, and or the inspection, or in case when we talk about LSA FFE, especially the lifeboats are not waterborne, 3 months for a normal lifeboat and once in rotation 6 months for 3 full lifeboats. Or the batteries of the engine cannot start of a lifeboat, the lifeboat engine cannot be started, and or if we have so now since we have many ships, the dedicated FRC fast rescue craft or rescue boat, any problem with that can also lead to a detention. Point number six: absence, non-compliance, or substantial deterioration to the extent that it cannot comply with its intended use of fire detection system, fire alarms, firefighting equipment, fixed fire extinguishing installations, ventilations, fire dampers, and quick closing valves. So anything which may jeopardize the vessel's protection as far as the fire detection, fire alarms, firefighting equipment, or fixed firefighting equipment, and or from the engine room point of view, where at present lots of detentions are taking place, are for fire dampers and quick closing valves. Point number seven: substantial deterioration or failure of proper operation of the cargo deck area fire protections on tankers. In other words, for substantial deterioration or failure of your tank deck area or the protection of the cargo area, if it is there is a miss or there is something which is lacking, that the protection of the cargo area is goes unprotected because of some lapses in the maintenance or upkeeping of the fire protection or fire prevention system, that can also lead to a detainable deficiency. Point number 8, absence, non-compliance, or serious deterioration of light, shapes, or sound signals. Of course, when we talk about absence and non-compliance of and or deterioration of the lights and or light, shapes, and sound signals, which are normally kept on the bridge, and a regular maintenance checks shall be carried out as per the PMS. In case there is something which is not functional, shall be immediately rectified, and or new replacement shall be procured time. Point number 9, absence of failure of proper operation of radio equipment for distress and safety communication. So in the GMDSS panel, or for anywhere where the vessel becomes, incapable of using her distress system in case if the need be, that also leads towards a serious detainable deficiency, because in case there is a problem with your GMDSS system, or in case the operation of distress safety communication cannot be carried out in case of any eventuality, can also lead towards a detention. Point number 10, absence of failure of the proper operation of navigation equipment taking the provisions of SOLAS into account. That is when we talk about all the equipment on the bridge which are designed as per the safety equipment certificate, which is given to the vessel class approved or class endorses it. Any deviation or any malfunction or any non-operation of any of those navigational equipment, be it your egg disc, radars, GMDS, anything which is on the bridge, and if it is not operational, that can also lead to a detention. Now, in details, as I said, we'll discuss in my subsequent lecture. Under lecture number 38, it will be part 2 then, but I would need your feedback, that what else do you want me to talk about? Because if I talk at length, then the whole lecture will be very long, and it will not be very convenient for me to upload such a long lecture. Therefore, I request you go through all this lecture, and please do be specific and tell me what you want me to emphasize upon, Aisha. Point number 11, absence of corrected navigational charts and or other relevant nautical publications necessary for intended voyage, taking into account the type approved electronic, that is egg disk, operation on official data may be used as a substitute for the charts. In other words, in case your egg disk, is not operational, and you have some or the other, maybe you will get one port failure, but you have out of two, one exist is operational, but to have 100% redundancy, you have the backup charge for that area. There can be a provision where you can be allowed to sail for only one until the next port, provided your first exist is working, and for some reason that the company or the owner could not bring, or the technician or the part or some equipment could not be connected to the ship. Under those circumstances, the vessel could be exempted. But remember this, these are all detainable deficiencies. First and foremost, like what we say, we must put our house in order. Kindly ensure, of course, to the masters that under no circumstances the vessel should sail when any of the bridge equipment is malfunctioning. As a master, I'll tell you, I would be ready to take a delay for few hours if the company or operator can connect the technician to get my any of the bridge equipment which is not functioning, not operational, or malfunctioning, to get it rectified. I would take that risk. Yes, because I don't know what happens, because when maybe I'm scheduled to go from point A to point B, but what, because of some commercial obligations, the vessel gets diverted to another port, and that also is a port which is like where it may not be possible to procure the equipment or source the equipment. Therefore, what I would do it as a master, exercising prudence towards the safety of navigation, I shall at all times ensure that if anything which is not operational and the vessel is at a convenient port, maybe there could be a delay for connecting the spare and or the technician. And if it is not very long, definitely I would perhaps use my little judgment to try to hold the ship to get the thing sorted out before I sail out. See, remember, I'll tell you what, if we have this kind of attitude, and remember when I say attitude, if we add up from A to T to, alphabetically, that is the only thing which makes 100%. It's not the aptitude, not the skills. So let's talk about it in a very simplified manner that if I as a master have I talk safety legitimately, logically, at all times exercising all prudence in a correct manner. I construe safety as safety. And for some reason, I find that some of the bridge equipment or any critical thing which is not operational or has just started malfunctioning while the vessel was at port, I certainly would try to procure all the help from my operators or my managers. And if, let's say, the vessel has completed cargo, and let's say the technician is about to come in another 5 or 10 or 12 hours, provided that that equipment is very critical and I cannot take chances, then definitely I'll try to hold her and try to get her rectified. Because you see, commercial obligation, what may happen, that vessel may be scheduled to go to one port where which might also be convenient, but end of the day, somewhere in the middle of ocean or deep sea, you may find the change of orders have taken place and the vessel is routed or deviated to another port where probably all these facilities are not available. So I'd leave this to the masters here, the masters to their judgments. But this is what I'd like to wanted to bring it to your notice, because I've been also for 2 decades plus as a master. So this is what I would do anyhow. Number 12, absence of non-sparking exhaust ventilation for cargo pumps. Number 13, serious deficiencies in the operational requirement. Operational requirement, when we talk about, in the cargo pumping or the cargo operational area or any other uh, modus operandi by which her operational uh, things are getting affected, that can also lead towards detainable deficiencies. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the first lecture on the PSC started under lecture number 38, part 1. Please do come back to me on my WhatsApp or on my YouTube channel. Please do like and subscribe with your comments, and do let me know how do you want me to facilitate you to, let's say, upgrade and enhance ourselves, to bring ourselves and be at par with the competitive industry as even and as far as the industrial practices are concerned. Thank you very much and good day. I hope we all are safe and sound, and I will be looking forward to see you again with your comments. Otherwise, after this lecture, lecture number 39, I'll be continuing with my series of hydrodynamics and ship handling case studies and STS operations. Thank you again.